Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Speaking for myself, the main reason I became interested in psychedelics and plant medicines was directly correlated to the idea of self-mastery. The ability to move through life both with awareness and the necessary drive to take action to change the things about ourselves that feel out of alignment is paramount if we are to actually live our lives, rather than have our lives live us. Today's guest on the show is the host of the Mic Drops podcast, is a man who understands the topics of plant medicines and self-mastery very deeply, and is someone who, as soon as I met, I could tell we were going to have an amazing time chatting about how these subjects interweave into one another. So without further ado, please give me a hand and welcoming my man, Michael Rogerson, to the show. Mike, my man, how are you?
What's up, man? Yo, thank you for having me, bro.
Absolutely.
Here, bro.
Absolutely. And before we hit record, we were talking about how amazing the Austin scene is, for all of the things that, you do, whether it becomes self-mastery, consciousness, plant medicines. I mean, it seems like Austin is really becoming a hub, very similar to like we were talking about Sedona, right? Like, I've been to Austin once and it's so fun. The culture there is amazing. All the people are just very high vibe from what I found there. And it's really up and coming, and I'm curious, like, how long have you been there?
Yeah, dude. So I've been here for 2.5 years. When I moved here, I think I knew like one or two people. And I remember I used to live in Fort Myers, Florida, and I remember getting a reading from someone before I left. And it was this really respected psychic. And he says, pull a tarot deck off the wall. And I said, let's get this one. He spreads it out, and there's two cards in there that weren't supposed to be in the deck. And he pulls them out and goes, let's look at these. And he goes, oh, you're moving. And I'm like, yeah. In like 2 weeks, I was moving.
Yeah.
And he's, oh, it's a big move. He goes, just so you know, everything that you're looking for and all the people are where you're going. Like, don't worry. And so I came to Austin, and I literally feel like I'm like immersed in magic. I'm immersed in like, I talk about this stuff on a daily basis, psychedelics, consciousness, magic. And it's like, Austin is a hub. It's a vortex. And I mean, I talk to people, everyone's like, it's so weird. It's like everyone's being drawn here for a reason. And like,
yes,
I don't know what it is yet, but I can feel something like brewing, bro.
Yes. And it's so cool that you mention it that way, right? Because I feel as though for a lot of us, right? And I would imagine those are the people that are willing to hear this. They're also open-minded, but they're also doing the work like meditating and things like that. We're starting to understand that there's a lot of things that we can't explain, but it doesn't make it less real. It actually makes it more real, right? Because it's a different part of the brain. It's the right brain actually giving us that feeling, right, of a yes, right? Rather than the logic of like, well, Austin's cheaper, or, whatever argument we could say it's cheaper. And, logistics wise, it's going to be hot, like Florida or whatever, our logical mind can come up with, which, yes, is valuable to a certain extent. But the real magic of life, I mean, you talked about magic and conscious, all of that comes from more of the feeling side of life. And that's so cool, man.
Totally, dude. That's like something I try and live by my life by. And I don't know if you listen to Bashar.
Yes, dude.
Yeah.
That is weird. I just had to jump in real quick and say, I just talked to my friend who I hadn't seen in probably a year. We chatted for 45 minutes, just battery charging like we are. And she kept mentioning Bashar. So continue. Sorry, that was just an amazing synchronicity.
For whoever doesn't know, Bashar is a channeled being from a guy named Daryl Anka, channels this extraterrestrial from our future, supposedly, named Bashar. And his information has radically transformed my life. What I love about Bashar is he always says, we can't prove that we are who we say we are, but put the information to the test, because that's what matters. If it changes your life and it works for you, great. And it works for me. And all I have to say is, the formula he mentions is what I try and live my life by. And that's to follow your highest excitement in every moment. Take it as far as you can take it until you can take it no further, with no insistence or expectation of the outcome.
Yes.
And that, I think, is how you live magically, how you live in synchronicity. And he talks about the same. He says, as we evolve our consciousness, synchronicity becomes our currency. We don't have to try and figure things out, because you're living from a different reality. You play by the rules of the world you identify with. And if you're living from a different, a logical place, you got to play by the rules of the normal world. But when you live from the heart, so like Bashar talks about, that feeling of excitement or bliss is our body's translation of a communication from our higher mind, which has the whole map. It sees everything. And so living from that place in every moment, what feels exciting and expansive, and that might even be fear, but does it feel expansive? Can I take that not knowing what is here in Austin, and like not knowing anybody? And now my life is like, I wake up every day and I'm like, I can't believe I live here. And the people that I know, like, it's weird, dude. Like the caliber is like, I feel like I used to, talk to people, and when we're starting to see crazier manifestations, and they're like, dude, like we'd see something really crazy. That's like next level. We're like, make this the new normal. Like don't call it crazy. Call it,
yes, of course. Normalize it.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like my life is now, because I've been following that formula with no insistence. And it's like the synchronicity is just organized in ways you could have never predicted,
Yeah.
It's wild.
And, it's really cool too, because as I sit here and, we're vibing on the exact same level too. And this is a lot of what I've been coming to, and just like these awestruck moments where I'm like, this doesn't make any logical sense. And that's amazing, right? It's like the one question I have for people to live in more the logical mind is like, is that fun, right? I imagine for some people it is, right? And so, yes, but I know for me, for a long time, I tried to put that square peg in a round hole, right? Of trying to always be logical. And, I would rather choose a life for myself that is not easily explainable, right? Because that actually puts the magic back into life. Because at the end of the day, we're allegedly floating on a alleged round rock, in this thing called space, which apparently is allegedly nothing, but also everything, and has the energy in a cubic meter to boil all the the Earth's oceans, right? Like, so there's so many, we don't know anything. Like that at the end of the day, we don't know anything. And so like one of the things I believe psychedelics is helping so much with is people realizing that it's okay, and actually it's perfect to not know. Like that's not part of this life. That's like almost like a side effect of the left brain running amok, is that we have to know things. It's like, no, we learn about things, but we also know like, this could all be wrong. Who cares, right? Yeah. Surrender, right? That's what you were talking about. Not caring how you get there. Yeah,
I think that's one of the most beautiful things. So I was raised in a very religious home, and I remember having a really solid belief system. Like I knew, and everyone else didn't know exactly.
Yes.
And over time, I got humbled real quick, especially once I started exploring psychedelics. And I love just being like, this is my opinion in this moment, and that might change in 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I remember I was on 2 tabs one time, and I just remember thinking like, I know what I know. I know what I don't know. But I don't know what I don't know. And it got me, bro. It got me. But I remember thinking there's so much magic and mystery out here. And I think we're literally made for it. And that's why I love me being a magician, like an actual performance magician as well. I see that people light up in mystery. People light up when it's magic, because I think it's okay. I think it's beautiful using our analytical brain for certain things. Mm-hmm. And some people are more leaning that way. But to govern your life by that, I think is we're not meant, that's one side of the brain. And the other, to balance it out, is living from a mystery, living from the heart, living with synchronicity. And if we only live by one or the other, we're imbalanced.
Yes, 100%.
I think it's the head and the heart. And one's not better than the other. It's heaven and earth. It's the embodiment of both.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I wanted to stop by while I had your ear and share a very special announcement with you. You may have heard people say that we are facing an epidemic of loneliness in the world right now. We believe that this is only half of the story, and that the real epidemic and the root of feeling loneliness is a lack of connection. Do you want to connect to more purpose and passion with the important work you are doing? Do you wish you had closer friendships with people who understand you, listen to you, and are truly present with you? Are you wishing you and your partner could move deeper into love together? The connection in all of these areas comes down to the one most important element of connection, the ability to connect with yourself. If you are ready to see change in your life, if you are ready to feel differently when you wake up in the morning, if you are ready to step into the life you envision for yourself, the first and only route to making these changes is settling in, quieting down, and being able to connect to yourself. Now, this can be a major challenge in today's world with media, culture, and other energies that pull us out of our ability to connect. When you've tried fitness, meditation, and other self-development practices and still find yourself feeling alone and lacking connection, you may be feeling out of options and wondering if you'll ever be able to tap into your full potential that you know deep down is possible in your life. What we have found in working with our clients is that plant medicines, and cannabis in particular, can guide us in having the experience of what true connection looks and feels like. In this way, cannabis can act as a rite of passage for connection and a gateway toward the spouse, tribe, mission, and life you know you are ready for. Now, the pitfall here is that many people become codependent on the medicines, such as cannabis, and expect the medicine to do the work for them. If this continues, what will happen is the user will find themselves reaching for more and more cannabis to feel connection, without taking ownership of their role in the outcome of their experience, and thus they will fall into repeating the same painful patterns. As Zen Buddhism teaches, how you do anything is how you do everything. Therefore, if this painful pattern is showing up in your relationship with cannabis, it is likely a reflection of the same patterns you're experiencing in your friendships, romantic relationships, business, and your relationship with yourself. Learning to work with cannabis effectively will supercharge your experience and will help you get the result you are actually seeking, which is connection. We created a program to support seekers and high achievers like you in doing exactly this, to learn how to work with the healing power of cannabis to connect you back to yourself so you can unlock purpose, passion, and creativity in all areas of your life. What this program will give you is the long-lost user manual for cannabis. This user manual will teach you how to connect with cannabis correctly so that the plant can act as your spiritual aid and ally in life, just as our ancestors understood and practiced. If you're ready to unlock the full power of cannabis, meet like-minded people on the same path as you, build more purpose into your life, and have the most fun doing homework you've ever had, this message is for you. To learn more and qualify for your spot in the program, hop over to our Instagram profile at highly.optimized and book a discovery call. The conscious cannabis revolution is here. Will you be joining us? Sending all of you love. Enjoy the rest of the show. There's plenty of moments where, like, say if your tire goes flat on the side of the road, you need your left brain, right? But when you're trying to figure out the purpose to life or your purpose in life, that's not something you want to analyze. That's something you want to feel into, right?
Well, dude, that's like, so when I grew up, like I said, like this religious, and I just knew everything. I thought I did. And I started questioning a lot of stuff, and I got plugged into this house church that was more like mystical. And it was the guy who ran it used to be an ex-pastor. He's like, I don't like to do the whole church thing. He believed God, his definition of God was way bigger than that. So he started just this group, and you could believe anything you wanted. We had atheists come because they could feel a presence. And so this was in a place where I started the question. And this is where the mystery started opening up for me, because before this, I was like this Baptist growing up. Now I'm nothing and everything. But back then it was like, there's no definitions, but it was like, I knew the answers and I tried to tell everybody. And then I started questioning. I went to this house church, and they believed in miracles. They believed that God, or, whatever, this presence, Holy Spirit, whatever, didn't just work in the church, and they'd pray for people. And I started feeling these tangible presence, or what I believe is the electromagnetic energy, this universal intelligence that was really real. And that made me start like sort of melting my reality. And I remember they'd be like, yo, like you can like pray for people, and we've seen people get healed. And so I just started like going for it, bro. And I remember that's like, I felt broken bones move under my hands. Like I remember praying for this dude who had a motorcycle accident, and they put his bones back to like overlapped when they put him together. And I prayed for him, very new to this stuff. And I could feel something moving under my hands. And he started jumping up and down afterwards, and all his pain disappeared. And he also felt something move under his hands. All to say, I don't know what exactly happened, but he had no pain. And I started seeing stuff all the time. But that's what I started questioning, how is this stuff happening? Like, is there a God out there saying yes to you and no to you? You know? And or what's happening? And so I started realizing that there's more mystery to all of this. And there's not a God character saying yes to you, no to you. It has to really do with like us being a fractal of all that is the creator and the creation that is vibrating at a certain frequency that people can match up to when you see reality a certain way. And so all to say is like, I remember interesting going from being a Baptist to knowing all the knowledge to falling into this mystical house church that I just started stumbling into the miraculous. And there's so many stories like that, but that's what made me question everything and actually made me dissolve my belief about God in the mainstream way. Cause I was like, is there someone saying yes or no? And so I started stripping away all the techniques until one time I was in a bar, bro, and I'm doing magic for somebody and I was tipsy, and this dude has a broken arm. We had a cast on, and he's like, hey man, can you magic my arm together? And I was like, And at this point, I didn't know what I believed anymore because I was starting just to like question everything. And so I'm in this weird head, heart mystery, like soup. And I'm like, well, he's joking. So there's no pressure on me to do anything. He's like, oh, magic guy, can you magic my arm? And I was like, yeah, man, let me just see what I can do. And so dude, and at this point I was stripping away techniques. And I'm like, how is this stuff actually happening? So I just closed my eyes. I went into a 0 point, probably because I was a little tipsy at that time. And I opened my eyes. I'm like, all right, how's your arm, bro? And he starts freaking out. And he's like, dude, what'd you do to my arm? And I did nothing. I realized it wasn't about the technique. I closed my eyes and I left the reality of him having a broken arm. And I opened my eyes. I literally went into a mystery. I went into the unknown for a second. And I opened my eyes and things shifted. And yeah, I mean, didn't mean to word vomit, but that's kind of like a story from my like head to heart to mystery. And then kind of trying to still understand the mystery in the process. But the more you know you don't know anything.
Yes. And it's, that's the perfect thing. Like I say this quote, and I think almost every episode now, my listeners are probably like, oh, here it comes. But wise is the man that knows he does not know, right? And that's what I feel the sleeping giant of psychedelics. And, I just made a cannabis program, and like, really what I found with these things is they help you be more open-minded. They help you be less, no, I know, right? Because you see what's happening in the world right now. There's clearly some people that know they know, and then there's other people that know they don't know, right? And so there's control and surrender as opposite sides of the pendulum, right? And you see those different energies interacting. And what you were talking about, like if you believe that there are infinite realities, which I choose to believe, right? And you believe that, there's an ability to hop timelines and be able to, depending on what energy you embody, hop into that different timeline, then what it sounds like may have happened in that scenario is that you hopped into a timeline where that man's arm was not broken.
Dude, that's exactly it, bro.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because that's exactly what I think happened. It's like we're shifting parallel universes in every moment all the time.
Yes.
Just which one do you choose to shift to? And, after, like I said, now I try to figure out how it's working. And I think that's one of the explanations. But going back to I love going back to the Bible and realizing actually how mystical it actually was.
Yeah.
And
it's a great book.
Yeah, it's fire, bro. Highly recommend it.
Yes, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. But I love, because Jesus didn't mean to start a religion, but he meant to show that, at least in my opinion, that he was a reflection of an embodiment of God, and so are we. And saying, if you know who you were, you'll be just like me. And and so talking about that healing, there's a story that I go back to in the Bible that I love. I just love so much because it just it's inspiring me to use my awareness in a powerful way and always question what am I focused on. So I remember the disciples were trying to heal a girl and they couldn't heal her. So then Jesus comes over and heals her, and they said, "How come we couldn't do that?" And he says, "You don't do what I do because you don't see how I see." And he was talking about his inner imagination, his inner world, his inner sight. He saw her as already healed. And so he was vibrating as that reality, because I don't believe we exist in realities. I think we exist as realities. And so he saw that, and it gave her the opportunity to either sync up or switch with him, switch that parallel reality. And so in any moment, I'm always like, yeah, what am I focusing on? Like, where's my attention? Because I believe our attention is the greatest currency, and it creates worlds,
Absolutely. Where attention goes, energy flows,
which I think is one of the main reasons why we're so trained to be distracted, because our number one most powerful essence, our consciousness, is trained to not focus, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can see what happens in the world when we don't have our attention on point, right? Like we're getting, and this happened to me for a long time too, as I imagine it happened to you, right? That's what social media is. I mean, there are all these thirst traps, right? And they're not inherently bad, right? They're not objectively bad or anything, but it's how you're using them, right? And again, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, right? So for so many people, and I know I was one of those people, and I imagine you were too, until I really realized what you're talking about attention being this currency and it being able to, create your reality. I didn't prioritize like keeping it any certain check or keeping it on a certain thing because I didn't know what I didn't know. Right. And I feel like that's where so many people are at right now. And that's why I never cast, a judgment on them, because I'm like, I remember what that was like. Right. I hope that they find that point as well. But at the same time, it might not be their reality. Before I understood what attention was as currency, I didn't prioritize having my attention in focus. Right. Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's what we were talking about earlier, and that's where I feel so many people are at right now. And that's why it's so important to come from compassion, because if we come from that point of, that I've come from before, where it's like, you should be doing this, right? And we're shooting all over people, then really it's like we're forcing them into a direction that they might not be ready to go in, right? Everything is divine and perfect the way it is. And that's what I choose to believe, because honestly, living in any other reality does not feel fun for me, right? And I think that's what I've learned over the last, I'd say 5 years specifically, is that really, we don't know anything, right? So choose to believe whatever is going to help our experience of life be greatest and grandest, right? Because I do believe that out of those infinite timelines we can hop down, there's one that's the greatest and grandest. And if our mission is anything in this world, it's finding that one, right? Live full out.
Yes, dude. I think that's great. I think our purpose in life is to be our true self as purely as possible. And how we choose to express that in any moment is up to us to be creative. But it's to be our true nature and allow people, like you're saying, compassion, to be who they are. And this has always got me because, again, growing up, I was always trying to share with people the right way. And it's funny because whatever I see in someone else, I see in myself.
Yes.
So if I think that they should be different, secretly, I think that I should be different.
Yes.
Because the more I accept myself, the more I accept others. And I know that everyone is the perfect version of whatever they're expressing in that moment right now. Yes. And I don't think it's better to be peaceful than to be depressed. I don't think it's, or I think they're equally valid, and you need you need both polarities in all their forms, because you can't know expansion, freedom, that refreshing, like, oh, whoa, until you know the opposite. So to say someone shouldn't be where they're at is to argue with existence, to, like you said, create more resistance. And yeah, man, I think like there's so many times where I see my own life or I've seen other people. The moment I let someone just be, or myself, it's like that's exactly what the situation needed in order to go to the next level. And to invalidate someone or where they're at or what they believe is to not understand the bigger picture at work.
I love that, man. Paul Chek says a quote often, which is, if you spot it, you got it, right? And that's exactly what you were talking about with regards to, everyone is acting as a mirror for ourselves, right? And that's like, when I've looked into religion and such, I feel as though the left brain has taken religion and made it much more, attempted to make it much more quantifiable and like logical. And that's why now hell, purgatory, and heaven, if you're looking at like Christianity, or these three different states that are in every single religion, right? But said differently, that's why like those states are now something that's external to here, right? Oh no, when you're on Earth, you're just here. And it's when you go and when you pass on and you expand that you go to one of these states, when in reality, how I see it is how the 4th and 5th agreements talk about it, or the 4th agreement, or the 4 agreements and the 5th agreement talk about it, where, hell is a place on Earth, the same as heaven is a place on Earth, the same way that purgatory is a place on Earth. Because as I see it, hell is when you're gossiping, when you're doing all of these types of things. When that happens, you're actually living in hell on Earth, right? And so that's why for me, I don't necessarily judge anyone living in that way, because I was there at one point too. Yeah. But the challenge becomes that, do I choose that flavor of ice cream for myself now, knowing what I know, right? Or knowing what I think I know, right? And again, there's that think I know, right? And so, for me, it's much more about, that's where the compassion comes in, of knowing like, okay, I love this person. They might be in a place where I don't choose that flavor of ice cream, but I still love them, right? Yeah. And that's where we can use discernment rather than judgment. And so powerful.
Dude, I think that's so good. I think one of the things that, really hits home for me is to realize that everyone's doing their best.
Yes.
And even the most, the most, you could call it evil I don't really subscribe to that. If there's evil, I think it's deep confusion. I think that people act out from deep confusion and distortions of the mind.
Yes.
And I don't actually believe that, that the people are bad, or I think it's fear. And people forgot who they are. No one's actually lost because it's all one thing. So if everything is one thing, then there can't actually be good and evil. It is, to me, it's one mind. And within that mind, there's a forgetfulness and there's a knowing and a remembering. And so when anyone's acting out in any way, again, it's like, if I judge them, I can only see judgment in them if I'm judging a part of myself. Exactly. And then to understand that, okay, they're always doing their best in every moment. I'm always doing my best, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it doesn't look that way. Even the most messed up things that anyone does is a cry for love, or a cry for, this might sound, I don't know, this might be a little controversial, but I was, coaching with someone and I was talking with them, and they did it wasn't anything super serious, but it was, some like, I guess you would call it some sexual perversion in like the family, and some stuff was happening, and they were dealing with guilt. And I was like, listen, I'm like, at that moment, it's a cry for intimacy from a very extremely confused place.
Yes.
It's not that you are a bad person, but it's that it's such a confusion that the only way that you think you can get intimacy is from a confused place. And that creates suffering in the world. Yes. But and so to me, it's like, that's what Jesus talked about. He said, heaven is here now, but unless you repent or change the way you think, you'll never enter it, which means it's within us, it's around us. And what keeps us out of that is confusion and distortions. He said, unless you become like a child, you can never enter it. And the state of the child is innocence. It's a state of being before judgments, opinions, beliefs. It's what is when we aren't, out here in the world of illusion of thought forms. And it's only when we believe those thought forms that, again, we act out in confusion.
Yes. What you just stated perfectly is something that I've really been going over a lot recently. And I was watching a show on Gaia, which shout out to Gaia. That network is amazing. Yeah, absolute fire. I think it was that show Intention, actually. And they were talking about how, this is why all the great religions talk about meditation and breath work and rituals, right? Because the mind is supposed to be the passenger. And the challenge of why there's so much mental health and things like this going on right now is because there is a lack of understanding around this whole idea of what the mind will do when it gets put in the driver's seat, right? And, one of the things that I've really been tuning into is that, like you were saying, it's this misperception, right? The mind allows us to get into states of guilt, shame, all of these things happening, these things looking at as they're happening to us rather than for us, yada, yada, victim mentality, all these things, which then skew what's actually happening. And then from there, people make decisions based on these skewed things because they're not actually taking a step back to get away from thought and realize, oh, I'm not any of these things. And therefore, I'm not going to act on these things. But therefore, I know when these negative thoughts are coming up, oh, I'm not just going to act on them. I'm not these thoughts. But also, where are they coming from? There must be something in my lower brain that's programming me. That must be relevant to where my energy levels are at and things like this, right? So they're all clues. But if you take them at face value as just truth, that's when I feel you get into trouble with, mental health issues, a lot of the different things we see going on, right? Where people are trying to control things because they know what they know, and it's very interesting, and I'm really glad you brought that up because it's so important to recognize that. And that's why it's so, just the same way that we take care of, our health, hopefully we take care of our families, we take care of these things, number one on the list, in my opinion, should be our mind, because our mind has the ability to make us the life of our dreams or destroy it, depending on how we use it. It's a tool, right?
Yeah. I think, honestly, bringing back to psychedelics for a second, I think that is what honestly showed me the power of who I truly am before thoughts. Because, you can hear all these teachers and people talking about it. And to me, it was kind of confusing. Sometimes it just becomes head knowledge. And after experimenting and journeying a lot, it's like, whoa, there is realities that have nothing to do with thoughts, that have nothing to do, like, it's so outside of description. And it inspired me to start practicing with those and going deep into meditation and asking what's true when there's no thoughts about reality? Like what's real, And, I listened to this dude, Bentino Massaro, which I love his teachings, and he has really good, just practices and teachings and meditations. After studying, some of the teaching and practicing more meditation, it's like, you start knowing your true nature and things. You realize that you only have suffering when you're object focused. And but that's the trick, is you only ever really experience yourself, you never experience a circumstance. We only ever experience beliefs and opinions and thoughts about things. So we only ever experience ourselves. And so I think it's extremely important to question the mind and to purify and get to know that state so it becomes louder and louder, because I think the more you can turn attention in on those subtle realities become extremely loud, and that external world starts tuning out. But again, whatever you pay attention to will grow. And so the more you pay attention to those subtle realms of awareness, that's how I think you cultivate God power, and it's that awareness. And that's what psychedelics did for me. One of my first MDMA journeys, when I first discovered it, I discovered it through not the greatest crowd. And I abused it. But I remember I always had this deep spiritual, just longing. And that's really the reason I got into this stuff. And so I was like, I remember, finding MDMA, I'm just going to sit in my room and meditate. All I'm going to do. And I found Chill Step and Alan Watts that night, which blew my mind. And
shout out to Chill Step too.
Oh, dude, and Alan Watts on top of it.
My goodness.
So I remember I'm sitting there and I'm tuning in, and these realities start opening up to me. And I thought I was meditating for 30 minutes. I look at my watch thinking, all right, I should probably get going. 3 hours passed. Wow. And time was extremely just malleable. And that's the first time I really saw that there is some magical realities that are so, I guess on psychedelics, they become extremely loud. But I guess that inspired me to start paying attention to the subtle realities.
One of the things that, really trips me out, and I love thinking about this, especially when I'm on plant medicine journeys, is that consciousness, as we know it, is a psychic substance, right? And it's produced not blindly, but in living awareness of opposites, as Paul Chek says. And so what I take that to mean is that consciousness in some degree is a psychedelic, right? It's filtering out a lot of the stuff. We only see 4% of visible reality. So what happens to the other 96%? Well, it gets filtered out because honestly, a lot of it is not exactly useful for survival and things like that, right? But at the same time, what these medicines can do is show us what's already around us, right? And that was one of the big aha moments that I had, years ago when I first started journeying and had some people in my life that were more experienced with these things. They told me these medicines are not actually the thing that's making you have this experience. They're giving your body and your chemicals in your body the permission slip to redo how they usually run, right? So instead of only a little bit of serotonin coming out or, a certain amount, it's dumping it, right? So then how does your reality change when you have more serotonin in your body, right? So these plant medicines are actually the permission slips to allow your body to do its own thing, right? And that was a mind-blowing moment for me, right?
I've never heard it said like that. that. That's
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah. Dude, thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you, dude.
You spawned that. Like, it's so funny when you meet people who you vibe with in this way, right? And you charge each other's batteries because you allow the reality that we're each living in to be able to shift a little bit, right? And, how I always think about it, right, is you think about a high vibe, right? And what that even means. And, when I was first interacting with cannabis and psilocybin, I feel in the modern day that I live where I used to go when I first started interacting with them. Like those places I used to go, I live there now. Like it feels as though most times, especially when I get some good cacao in me, or, I go on a great walk in the sun, I feel like my head is expanding. Right. And it's like, I have this like thing I do with my hands where I'm like, I feel like I'm out here right now. Right. And it's a more like what's the right word? Like a more expanded point of view, right? Just to keep it simple. And that's like one of the things that I love about meeting other people on similar wavelengths is that you can do that for one another and you can be the medicine, right? The medicine that is us. Because if we are able to have the experiences we have when we take plant medicines, right, then that's already within us, like we were just talking about, right? So what are we able to do when we really start believing in these things, right? Because, one of the things that I've come to in my medicine journeys is, I feel as though you're on the right track of talking to your soul when everything is ridiculously simple. Like it's so simple that it's almost like hard for you to understand because you're like, wait, it's that simple? And they're like, yes, I don't know why you're overcomplicating this, right? And, one of the things that I've come to that's become a mantra of mine is whatever you believe, you become. Right. And that's a perfect, description of subjective versus objective. It's like, who knows if it's the truth, but if you believe it, you will become it. Right. So believe in yourself. That's why everyone says believe in yourself. Right. Not because there aren't reasons you shouldn't. Right. You're always going to be able to find evidence to support whatever story you choose to believe. But what reality do you want to live in? One where you quote unquote can't believe in yourself because, you were born into a, unwealthy family and this happened and that happened. Or do you want to say those things actually helped me believe in myself more because that was all supposed to happen? Right. It's purely the decision of what you believe.
Dude, that's literally that's like all I think about is beliefs. And again, like beliefs are what focus and shuts out reality. I believe like beliefs are like the containers that choose the realities you experience. It's like an inner sense. We have feeling, touch, and those don't let us, like our physical senses don't so much let us perceive reality as they shut out reality to give us a focused experience. And I see that's the same thing with beliefs. We all have assumptions or beliefs. And so then when we see our reality, we can use the reflection to ask, what must I believe to be true about myself or life in order to be getting this reflection?
Yes.
And then the moment you transform it, life transforms because it's a mirror. And that's the same thing with the miraculous we were talking about. All it is letting go of beliefs and definitions and assumptions that don't serve you. That person's sick. That's just a belief and an assumption. The moment you change your descriptions and embody new realities, it opens up possibilities. And and going back to Bashar, something that I learned from him, which I really like, is he talks about there's only really 5 laws in all of existence, and everything else is an opinion or a belief. And not that beliefs are bad, but beliefs are the building blocks of physical reality.
Yes.
So besides the 5 laws, you can just ask, what am I believing to be true? And the moment you start changing your definitions, reality will literally start changing. Because again, I don't believe reality is outside of us. I think it's an extension of us,
Absolutely. It's a projection, right? It starts inner and then it moves outer the same way purpose works and everything. It's like the funny thing, another, hilarious download I got from great psilocybin experience is everything's an inside job, right? Like it's always like, and that's what we've been talking about the whole time. Like whatever you're seeing in other people is just relevant or related to what you believe about yourself. And, the thing that came to me when you were talking about it is like beliefs are our permission slips for what's possible, right? So if you believe in love, well, then guess what? You're going to find love either with yourself, with someone else, etc. But if you believe love isn't real, then guess what? You're going to find a lot of evidence to support that, right? Because that's what you believe. And so it's really like these beliefs are what is giving you permission to either have an experience or not have an experience. And so then it becomes, and this is where I'm perfectly at this point in my life, and I've surrendered to, and I love that I'm at this point is, hey, what do I choose to believe? And maybe there's things, and the reason I enjoy plant medicines is because every once in a while, I feel as though I believe what I believe, right? But I like to take an objective kind of check in and go, okay, let me take a step back and see what triggers me, see what does this, see what invokes a reaction in me, and go, is that serving me, right? Maybe sometimes it is right now. Maybe I'm okay with that, right? But also some other times, maybe it's not. And I want to take that malware out and put it back in reaffirmware, right? And so it's so important for me to continue those check-ins, and I can do them in meditation, et cetera. But sometimes I like to do a big Control-Alt-Delete and interact with the medicine.
Dude, I think that's beautiful. I think sometimes, we don't realize what we believe. It's like the unconscious, but again, like psychedelics definitely bring that up. And for me, like I've been journeying with ketamine a lot, and it's, I didn't even realize just like the fear of death, and yes. like fear. And it's not even so much the fear of death, but it's the fear of loss, the fear of losing relationships. There's what I perceive to be a loss, which I believe that is the root of all suffering. It's just a belief that you're going to lack something now or in the future. Yes. And so then it's like, well, then is loss possible? And so can I question that thought? Who do I think I'm the body? Do I but that's been one of the biggest ones for me is, I think one of my biggest fears is the fear of death, and not even so much me dying, but I think of the fear of loss. And it's fascinating because I think when I go about my life, bro, I feel like I'm pretty fearless, but then you do a journey or something and it all comes up. And it shows you, it definitely shines light on those dark, not negative, but shadow places, the unconscious things, man. But again, it's like the more I've dived in deep into that stuff, though, it's like, I love that you can only find more of your true self in the shadow, And yes, I remember when I first found ayahuasca, it was extremely scary because I was coming out of Christianity and I knew it. And ayahuasca found me in the most I used to work for this Christian nonprofit organization, and I was co-leading a mission trip to Nicaragua. And one of the youth kids, I'm talking to him, and we had a really powerful prayer meeting kind of thing. And I was actually really powerful. Like the presence of God, or however you want to call it, was there. It was nuts, and kids are crying. And I'm like, hey man, was that one of the most powerful experiences you've ever had? He's like, it was cool, but you ever hear of ayahuasca? This kid's like 15, 16. He's from Florida. He's like, yeah, I'm a part of this thing called the UDV. My godmother, she's a member of it. It's like the Brazilian tradition of ayahuasca. And he's been going for a year or two. And he's like, do you want to come? And he just invited me to get to go for free and experience their tradition for like a year. Wow. But that was scary because I'm coming out of Christianity, and ayahuasca was opening me up where my belief systems were just melting. And I was so scared because, talking about beliefs are our world, and my whole worldview and all my everything crumbled. And I was so scared because that transition, that dark night of the soul, ayahuasca was just like, nope, and I didn't have answers though. I just knew I just saw things didn't make sense anymore on so many levels. But again, just to bring it in, it's like, I pursued and I jumped into the shadow, and I kept going, and I kept taking the next step and facing my fears. And now, not that I still have, stuff, but my life now compared to 5 years ago when that happened is radically transformed. And it's so amazing, man. It's again, it's I think it's really important to understand that, the shadows and the fears, you only find more yourself. You only find more your true nature,
Absolutely. It's, a quote that I love. And again, this is another one I say in most every episode, but it's so true is, if you laugh at the devil, he will run away. Right. And, it's so perfect too, because what do you find in the devil? You find yourself, right? Like whatever version of yourself you think is the dark side, it's also you, right? And, it reminds me how important it is to allow yourself to be human, right? Like we understand, and a lot of us, I would say me and you for sake of this conversation, right? We believe that we are infinite. We believe that we are God. We believe that we are all these things. We believe that everyone is, right? And everything is. And at the same time, even though I understand that everyone's infinite, and, I believe that we have soul families, and this isn't going to be the last time we see people. When my dad passed, it was hard, right? And I caught myself being like, we're infinite. And I was like, that is bullshit right now. I'm going to let myself feel the pain of being human, right? the way I like to think about it too is, imagine that everyone you've ever loved, everyone you've ever known, you go to Disneyland together, right? And you're all playing on rides and you're having a blast. And then some people go home before you, right? And so it's like, you're going to see them again, yes, but you can still cry or get upset or be, sad because you can't ride the rides with them right now, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if all we have is the present moment, then of course, allow yourself to be human. And that's what, I teach a lot of my clients, and I imagine you do too, is like, listen, like it's all well and good to remember like you're godlike and all of these things are godlike powers and that you're God and all this stuff. But also remember, like we are having a human experience right now, and it's okay to stumble. It's okay to be, upset. It's okay to fear death, right? It's okay about these things because, at the end of the day, like it's what makes us feel alive. Like fear is actually one of the things that when you're scared about something, you're alive, right? Because you have all your senses heightened, right? You're actually feeling the human animal take over. And, again, like I choose to believe that everything happens for us. And so like, I imagine you had a lot of similar experiences too, where it's just those moments when you reflect on them, you're like, all right. I mean, like even when my father passed, it was challenging, but through that, I had to find faith in something bigger than me. Right. And it was, my dad's parting gift, right? He also left me with a lot of lessons that, were packaged up under the Christmas tree, waiting for me to open up. And, him and I still talk. And, it's, of course, I can imagine someone like, what are you talking to him on the phone? It's like, no, but, I feel his presence, I feel the energy that was him. I can hear sometimes in my dreams and sometimes I'm in meditation, the sound of his keys hitting the back of the door, just funny things. And, again, it's like the message that everything's okay. Right. And it also means that you can cry along the way. It's so important to have both.
Dude, yes, it's not either or, it's both and. It's because it's interesting. So yeah, when I was a kid, I got in a car accident with my family, lost my brother, lost my mom.
Wow.
And then my dad remarried to my best friend from elementary school's mom. And then we were a family for a while. My best friend became my sister. She died in a car accident. I've had so much death, right? And now one of my biggest fears is losing my dad. We're talking about that. And I love that you said it's like it's being human too. It's we're God and animal mixed together. It's crying, and it's also we are infinite. And so I've experienced a lot of the suffering, and it's which is beautiful because like you said, it's like that's how you're alive. And it's like, yes, we're going to live forever. And this is the only version of ourselves we're ever going to be. So in both aspects, it's like, I'm never going to, I'm never going to run out of time. And also this is the only version of myself I'll ever like this version of myself. I'm never going to be 7-year-old Michael again. I'm never going to be even this lifetime of Michael again. My consciousness will go on, but this makes this lifetime special. So I'm eternal and don't, make the most of it. But with the death, man, it's like, it's fascinating because I lost my mom and I love that. Like, yes, I wish she was here. And like what you're saying, bro, like I've had so many things happen where over the past 2 years where she has come through extremely loud. I mean, my friend's mom is a very underground, like psychic, like lives in like just like when she gets flown out from like celebrities, but no one knows who she is. Like she lives in Florida in a small town. Her part-time job is a bus driver. Like, but she's dude, I've never met someone almost as psychic as her. And I didn't really know her at the time. I was having a conversation with her and I knew her son a little bit, and I'm over at their house and I'm just talking to her and she's like, hey, sorry, this happens sometimes. And she just starts pulling in like my grandmother and this and like getting names and cities and like crazy things. And I didn't pay her. There was no money involved. She's just having a conversation. And she goes, I'm sorry, Laura's coming through. Do you know a Laura? I'm like, well, that was my mom's name. And she's like, oh, and I'm seeing metal. I'm like, well, there's a car crash. And then she got some other crazy stuff. And then like a year later, I'm seeing visions of owl. I don't really get visions much, but I'm seeing a vision of an owl, like very clearly. And I'm starting to see owls everywhere. When I had the vision of an owl, I was wearing an owl shirt and I'm seeing Owl Street. And it's like, what? It freaks me out. I'm like, this is weird. Like, this is just like me. I wasn't looking for owls. Like I'm seeing owls everywhere. And so right around this time, I go to this like wizard, like metaphysical retreat right after I'm seeing all these owls, which this all makes sense in a second. And we're doing this exercise. And usually when I do exercises, like ceremonies and stuff, I call my mom as a spirit guide. And as I'm about to call her in, I look at the mug. There's a coffee mug sitting next to me. And there's the name Laura on the mug. And we're at this like retreat house, and there's no other names on any of the mugs except for Laura, which is sitting right next to me. And so I'm starting to see all these signs. Other stuff was happening. And then again, I'm seeing owls everywhere. And then this is a few months ago, my buddy, he channels a really powerful consciousness, like it's ET consciousness. And I asked about my mom, and it's just to see if he could tap into her energy. And whether this is real or not, I have no idea, but he doesn't know about any of this. I've never talked to him about this. And he's like, yeah, she comes through and helps you with wisdom, and she comes in the form of an owl. And I was just like, get the F out of here, bro. Like, that's crazy. And I guess all I have to say is, I think it's beautiful that it's learning a new form of communication. And it also can suck, not having the same way, but it's at least it's like learning a new language and knowing that consciousness doesn't die. And I just thought it was a cool story, essentially.
I love that, man. This is one of the main reasons I love this podcast so much, because, this is where I choose to live, because this is fun for me, right? Like, these kind of things, they're not just fun. They allow me to have faith. And really, if you boil it all down, like what I think religion got right in all of it is, and what was really brought through is, to have faith that everything's okay, right? You don't need to understand how it all works. You don't need to understand why it's here. You don't need to understand who you really are, you don't need to understand any of that. Of course, you can have fun and get into it. But for a long time, I'm a 5/1 projector in human design. So for a long time, that one part of me wanted to truth seek everything, right? Because it was an unconscious fear and anxiety that I didn't know enough and that I needed to figure it all out. And when I was able to realize, I can have a happy sense of surrender where I have faith that everything is working in my favor. I have faith that everything's okay. And I don't need to know what that faith is or why it's there or what mathematical formula, it equals out, because all of that was putting a lot of unneeded stress on me. Because at the end of the day, when you're trying to figure everything out, it's really telling the universe, I don't have faith in you, so I need to figure it out myself, right? And you're never going to figure it out because it's way past human comprehension, right? It's so funny how, I got myself stuck in that for so long. And you were talking about, you're talking about emotions, right? And, I wrote something down that feeling emotions in general are what actually remind us that we are infinite, right? Because, when we're crying, it's like the other side of it, right? If we, and this is where I'm going with this, for me, for a long time, I had my judgments, of course, being a man, crying, all these things, right? And so therefore the problem, whatever problem I was facing that I wanted to just cry over and get it over with, right? Or feel sad over anything, right? I was stopping. And so I was prolonging the issue, right? But if you actually just feel the emotion and you can move through it, then on the other side, you then gain faith again and you remember you're infinite and everything's good, right? So it's emotions are actually the key. And the challenge is that I'll make it more personal. I have judged a lot of these emotional states for a lot of my life, and only have just in the last couple of years started realizing that, Joseph Campbell was right. Bliss is any emotion felt all the way through, no matter if it's sadness, no matter if it's whatever, right? I've had some of the best mushroom trips in my life, crying for hours, literally coming out of it feeling like a whole new person. It's amazing.
Yeah, dude, I think it's that's a beautiful quote. I got me. I think what I see it as is, I see it as it's all one. Okay, so what is an emotion? I think we experience emotions, and I could be wrong, but it's a pattern of whether unconscious or conscious. It's one energy filtered through beliefs.
Yes, exactly.
And so that you're experiencing the same energy, fear, bliss, whatever, it's all the same energy. Essentially, it's all one thing, but depending on the filter or the belief, it feels like different things. And especially through crying, I think we hold patterns of thought and beliefs and assumptions. I think we hold information in the water of our body. And so as we cry, we're purging out old information, old energies, old belief systems. And so it's literally washing away. And so we try and be so stoic, and it's flow, be water, like Bruce Lee talks about, and be malleable. And something that I just wanted to share, it's kind of a cool thing.
Please.
A couple minutes ago about this, I think I guess what was reminding me is the surrender. And a couple of things I remember, it's beautiful. I heard JP Sears, the comedian.
I love JP, man. Oh my God.
Yeah. Something he said, because he's always, even in person, he's just the most happy guy and joking. And which I love because it's who he is. And the reason I think it's powerful is he said one time, he said, fear seriousness is usually misdirected fear. Or seriousness is like, yeah. And he said, so playfulness that's like what we are. And so if you're serious, the question is like, what are you in fear of? And then talking about control, it's also the paradox, which this is what I love. And I always think about this, like the more you try and control things, the more out of control you feel.
Yep.
And the more you actually release control, that's actually when you're in the most control, because you're built into the control of the universe. And that's when you would be playful and surrendered and you're dancing with life. And the third part to this reminds me of this DMT experience I had where I got this fairy, what I saw as a fairy woman was riding a flying ant. And she put me down into the microcosm, deeper and deeper every layer. And I saw in every layer, well, first we went down to like the kingdom of ants. And I saw like ants were extremely intelligent, even though if I didn't understand their intelligence, they were magical. And for all I know, there's actually fairies riding ants and I can't see them. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, bro. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I saw how.
Who knows, right?
Like, that's what I'm saying, bro. Like,
there's a good probability, right?
Yeah, dude, it's just outside of my range of vision or hearing, And it's like, but so she's taking me down and I'm seeing the intelligence, the magic and the playfulness on every level. We keep going down, down, down into each, smaller and smaller until I see just like the geometric patterns of light vibrating. And then we go even further down until it's just beams of light vibrating. And what I saw, the download I got was, what is vibration? It's not just a mechanical thing. It's the ecstatic expression of the divine, of all that is. So like the universe is vibration. Yeah, but that's an ecstatic expression. Light vibrating is a ecstatic musical. It's an ecstatic expression of the divine. And so she shot me back up to my normal consciousness. I'm chilling on my chair and she telepathically looks at me and I feel such love from this like fairy woman. And she says, life is a play, so don't forget to play. And it got me, man. Cause like, again, taking things so serious. And she's like, playfulness, like, there's the quote that the more the more you can play, the more life becomes like clay and you can play with the clay. But it's like seriousness is concrete. And so all to say, it's like we just release control and flow and play and become like a child. Jesus said to become like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And he also says, if you seek for the kingdom of heaven, everything else will be added. So essentially what he's saying is be childlike. In that state of being, you're in an expansive state of being. You're in bliss, you're in surrender, you're in joy, you're in love. When you're in that place, you magnetize everything that you need. Everything. Yes. And that's good. So yeah,
bro. I feel as though that's why they say laughter is the best medicine, because who laughs? People that remember their kids, right? Eternally. Yeah. And it's that child energy, right? And, you think about the people that we hold in the highest regards with regards to consciousness, right? Like the Dalai Lama. That guy is literally a grown-up kid, like 100%. He's laughing almost all the time, right? And what's not to laugh about? I mean, really, like, that's why it's so funny to me how, for so long when I was first starting out on psychedelics, I would laugh so much and I would wonder, like, what's going on? It's because you're remembering how hilarious everything really is, right? Because you're not taking yourself so seriously. Yeah. There's a certain amount, if you're interacting with psychedelics in at least the quote unquote right way, right? If there is, there's a certain amount of surrender that goes along with it, right? And so I feel as though for me, when I was starting to interact with them, I knew at least about the surrender part. And so I was able to give myself a small permission slip that ultimately said unconsciously, stop taking yourself so seriously. So as soon as I was able to interact with that psychedelic, I was then able to remember to laugh because I remembered life was funny. Now I've been able to integrate that. And when you meet me in person, you'll know, but I am the most childlike person I can possibly be, right? Like I run my business, I do my thing, but at the same time, like my business partner and I, like when we have meetings, we're laughing constantly, right? We keep an air of lightness to everything because if you can't laugh, you'll cry, right? And not that crying is necessarily a bad thing, but at the end of the day, I enjoy laughter. I enjoy crying too, but laughter is so much fun because you can do it with a lot of other people and it just has a different energy to it, right? And, it's like, for me, laughter is my favorite drug, right? And luckily, psychedelics have helped me so much in being able to realize that, oh, that drug is me. I can have that whenever I want, right? Like I don't necessarily need a medicine to go interact with that. I still enjoy doing that, of course, right? And finding different messages. But that was one of the most freeing things I've received from the medicine is that, hey, man, so long as you can laugh, you're living the life the best way. Because, what I tell a lot of my clients and what I've told myself, again, like I had a medicine ceremony, I believe it was a heroic dose of mushrooms where I met myself and we were just laughing like back and forth, like just absolutely hysterical. And I remember him saying like, what are you taking life so seriously for? You're not going to get out alive, right? Like that shell of you is going to die anyway. So use it up, have fun, right? Like go enjoy yourself. And, I'll put it more personal. I took this life so seriously for so long. I have to get good grades. I have to do all these things. And it's like, it's fine to shoot for the stars, right? But what energy is behind that? Is it because you feel like you're a piece of shit if you don't? Or is it because you're like, hey, I'm all in, right? I want to do the best I can. They're two different energies, right? And, I like to say that I speak energy fluently now. And what that affirmation does for me is it helps me check in and go, where is this energy coming from, right? Is it coming from more of like the dark side of the ego? Or is the ego and I and the rest of me actually working in tandem? The ego's like, this feels really good. And you're like, of course it does. And then you can go to the gods, right? It's like, what energy you coming from,
Bro, that was all so epic, dude.
Dude, likewise, man.
Dude, yeah, I love what you said. The laughter is my favorite drug, dude. That's so good. It's like, yeah, I think the more you can just laugh, things get taken care of naturally. It's so cool. I'm like, that's really good. I'm taking this away from this podcast.
Please,
reminder of how good laughter is, bro. Like, I remember some of the most serious intense psychedelic journeys. At the end of it is uncontrollable laughing. And I don't even know why I'm laughing, and it just feels good. And it's like, why not? It's like, I need a reason to laugh. Like, it's like almost like that's our true nature. It's like, I think Muji talks about that. He's like, you don't need a reason to be happy, but you need a reason to be unhappy, And it's like, oh shit, that's fire. Like you only need a reason to not feel good. But if you just in your natural state, what's actually there is that happiness and bliss. And so I love that, bro. That's just a reminder of like, not going to get out of this thing alive, dude. So like,
go live it up, right? Like make life, make it an experience, right? Make it an experience worth remembering too, right? Because, what I choose to believe is, of course we don't take the cars, the money, any of that stuff with us, but I choose to believe that we do take our experiences and who we become as a soul, right? Totally. If I can remember to laugh hysterically as much as possible, then my soul ultimately remembers not to take life so seriously, or actually, therefore, I remember that I am a soul having a human experience, and therefore life is all good because it's infinite, right? And again, like everyone can choose what they believe, but I like that flavor of ice cream a lot. I'll stick with that one for now.
Yeah, dude, sign me up, bro. Me too, bro.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so good. Like it's just interesting. I think sometimes I can get to the side, think of spirituality, consciousness. It's so mystical and it's so woo, but it's funny. Like now that you're bringing that up, it's so many times in my psychedelic journeys. It's there's so many times where I literally, it's why are you taking things so seriously? And I remember doing one DMT experience and I was looking for some big thing, and I found these like cartoon characters looking things, and they were doing flips and they were flipping me off. And they were laughing at me and they were I'm like, you're going to flip me off? That's so disrespectful to DMT. Yeah. But the message I was like, why, and like, why did it trigger me? Right. It was like, and what they were emanating was, you take this whole consciousness, spiritual thing so seriously, lighten up. Which, dude, I love the line, like, the first stage to enlightenment is to lighten up. So.
Yes, 100%. I'm so glad you brought that up because, that's been my challenge with medicines like combo, right? Like combo is a challenging medicine and I love it, right? Like I really do enjoy the health benefits of it and what I've gained from it and what I feel after. And I felt like sometimes when I've been doing it, people get into this like serious sorrow state, like, all right, I'm gonna, and I'm like cracking jokes as I'm puking. Like I refuse, because, at the end of the day, it's going to happen regardless. So the only question I have is, do I want to laugh or not? Well, the answer is always, yes, I want to laugh. So why would I not laugh? What? Because I'm puking and I'm swollen up and I look like a frog. It's like, why wouldn't I laugh? I look hilarious. Like, of course I'm going to laugh, And so that's like, one of my favorite people is Mark England. And he knows Mike really well too, Mike Bledsoe. And he always says with doing combo, he's like, your main job is to breathe, but if you want bonus points, smile. Right. And it's so powerful, man, because, again, if you can sit through the quote unquote suck, right. And you can realize like, oh, this is fine. I'm safe. Like I can laugh through this too. Then hardships, I feel, are inevitable of some sort, right? Challenging things. We all have a birth and a death, right? So, and ultimately, if you love anyone in your life, there's going to be some hardships when you lose people. If you're able to get back to realizing laughter will lead you back into faith, and that's what I've found is that, I don't have to necessarily remember that every time, but if I remember to laugh, eventually I will find faith in a certain amount of time. Right. And it's not necessarily guaranteed every time in terms of like 30 seconds, a year, who knows? Right. But if I remember to laugh, everything's going to be okay.
Dude, fire, bro. I can go back and listen to this podcast.
Dude, hell yes. Dude, we've both been dropping some amazing bombs, man. I'm like, man, I got to go back and listen to what Mike just said. And dude,
great, bro.
Yeah, man. So dude, this has been so much fun, man. I'm so excited we get to actually meet in person in Austin and give each other a big old hug, share some good smoke and some good laughs. And, where can I send people to learn from you, to find out what you do for work and how they can work with you and just to connect with you, man? Where can I send them?
Yep, totally, man. So my main social platform is Instagram, which is at Michael Rogerson, no spaces. I also work with, I don't know if you guys know Brandon Bozarth, but a really powerful coach. And I co-facilitate a program with him called the 13.
Beautiful.
Which is a 3 to 6 month transformational container, which if you go to brandonbozarth.com, it's on there. And through the 13, and then through my Instagram, also Facebook. Yeah, that's the interwebs right there. But yeah, you can find
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man. And so guys, Mike is an amazing example of what our plant medicine journeys and our lives as a whole can look like when we choose to set our intention upon self-mastery. It is within this intention that we can use clear discernment in working with these medicines to further understand what we are looking for within them and how to go about receiving the lessons within safely, consciously, and effectively. If you felt called to engage in your own journey of self-mastery and are looking for some assistance to propel you into your journey with more energy and direction, then please do yourself a favor right now and reach out to Mike. His knowledge, coupled with his skills and wisdom, make him a perfect fit for anyone looking to up their game and create the best experience of life possible for themselves. Mike, my man, thank you so much for hanging out and sharing your time with us today. And until next time, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.